Hello, welcome to Caring Connections. I'm Sally Gibney. Before I start with our show today, I just want to thank everybody who participated in I Matter, You Matter Day on Wednesday, March 28th. It was a fabulous day and a huge success in spite of all my little complications with Facebook. Over 6,000 invitations went out through Facebook, and that's not even including extra invitations that people sent out to their friends and family. So thank you all for joining us, and now it's time for the I Matter, You Matter movement, because every day is I Matter, You Matter Day. More about that later. Our show today is Caring Connections with Our Pets. You know, I really believe that our pets are gifts from God to give us that unconditional love that we all need. I know our little Princey, who is my #1 guest here today, she's certainly a gift, and just our little angel. So I'll tell you more about her later, but in the meantime, I'd like to introduce my guest, Phoebe Savoy. How are you?
I'm just fine, Sally.
Nice
Thanks so much for having me on the show
today. I'm so
today.
glad you're here.
Oh, I'm looking
Pat
forward
Fry.
to it.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Pat's my, well, I think we should be co-hosts.
No, let you do that.
And Debbie Post. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Sally. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so good to have you here. Now, would each of you tell us about your special connection with pets? And first, tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Well, I grew up basically as an only child. Told my parents I wanted a sister, and they said I didn't need one because we had a dachshund named Cookie. So I always told everybody my sister was a dachshund. And I grew up with a very strong connection to animals because of the fact that I was an only child. And just made it, God bless me, with being able to make a living out of taking care of other people's animals. And I do boarding and grooming and daycare, and I've done it all my life. And like I said, I feel blessed every day.
Well, you're Princey's godmother.
Yes, I
right?
am. As a matter of fact, I am. My little princess, as I call her, because she's extra special. Yeah.
She really is. Pat, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm a former member of the board of Second Chance Animal Center, and in that role over the years, I've fostered a lot of cats, got homes for them. I'm a nurse by profession, retired.
Tell us a little bit about your nursing.
I spent most of my life as a nurse educator. My last job, I was the interim dean of the School of Nursing at the University of Vermont. I am retired, and I'm a total failure at retirement. If you ever want advice on how to retire, don't ask me. I am busier now than I ever was.
And what kind of things are you doing right now?
I'm doing some board work with the Paulet Scholarship Committee. We're working on the Paulet Library book sale. That's an ongoing about every once a week anyhow. I teach in the Four Winds program. I get to hang out with kindergarten kids and second graders, which is a lot of fun and very different after you spent most of your life teaching adults.
I'll bet.
You know, but they're really cute and very curious.
And spontaneous.
Yes. Yes, Mrs. French Fry is here. And then they go, hee. But it's a lot of fun.
That's great. That's great. Well, you've been a tremendous help to our foundation as well.
Yeah, and that's right. I'm on the board of your foundation.
Yeah,
Gosh,
absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. Debbie, tell us a little bit about you.
I was divinely guided, my husband and I, to move to Vermont almost 5 years ago. And most of the responses were, why do you want to move to Vermont? And I said, because it's absolutely spectacular. So we've been here almost 5 years. And my background is in education, and I also do extensive energy healing work, and I bring that into different areas. And our daughter just got married this past weekend,
Yes, oh
so
my goodness.
that was
So
a
you're
huge celebration.
You're probably still just unwinding from
I
that.
am. I'm still coming back down to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And currently, I am on the board of directors for Wings to Fly, a therapeutic riding center in Shaftesbury. And we're just getting ready to start up our spring-summer season.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, if each of you, let's just talk about certain special little stories about Phoebe with dogs and Pat with the cats and how you've fostered them and found homes. And then we want to hear about Wings to Fly. So let's start with you, Phoebe.
Well, actually, my first story, interestingly enough, is more about cats than it is about dogs at the moment. I have a son, as you know, who has Asperger's syndrome, very high functioning. It's on the autism spectrum. And there is an expert by the name of Tony Atwood, who's sort of the guru for anybody who has children with Asperger's syndrome. And his famous saying is, everybody knows that a cat is just nothing but an autistic dog. And
I love
because
it.
cats sort of have an attitude about,
An
it's all on
attitude.
their own terms and everything. And my son is, because he's sort of a loner also, has grown up with an incredible gift with cats. And I've always been a dog and cat person, but it's amazing. We'll go to somebody's house where, they don't have a cat. They have a cat, let's say, that is not friendly with other people at all, and it'll jump right in Todd's lap, which is a wonderful thing. But it's really taught him a lot about empathy and about love and about caring, and it's made a huge difference for him. And I mean, being around all of the pets for sure has done that for him. But I think that was probably the biggest change that I saw in him, was when he really got a connection with one of our cats. And I see that, of course, with people with their dogs. I think one of the most heartwarming things is when you have somebody, say an older couple, and they have a pet, and then one of the spouses dies. So now you have a widow or a widower, and the only connection they have to their former spouse is that pet. And it's heartbreaking, but it's a beautiful thing to see too, because it makes them converse with me a lot about back when Fred and I were together, and we had, and it helps them to relive their memories.
Their connection.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So I see a lot of that. I take a lot of joy in that, for sure.
I'm sure. Well, you've done so much with so many dogs, and I know more stories will come up as we go along. And Pat, tell us now.
Well, I'll tell a dog story.
That's great. Go ahead.
I'm one of those hopeless people who, I have 2 dogs and 8 cats. And
Can you imagine 8 cats? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, the nice thing about people do say, a cat's just dumb. They
Oh,
do
no.
their,
No,
and
they're very
not.
independent.
But when you have
Smart.
8 of them, I mean, the personalities and the interactions and is very nice. Our 2 dogs both came from Second Chance. One is a Siberian Husky who was abused, and he's still a little flaky around the edges. He likes to sleep in his crate. He's 10 years old. I've tried to get him out of the crate numerous times, and he sits there and cries.
Aww.
So
he feels safe.
he
It's a
feels
safe
safe.
zone,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He's a little strange, but he's wonderful. And the other one is she's a little bit bigger than Princess, and she's a Tibetan Terrier mix. And I don't know how I ended up with a Tibetan Terrier mix, because I didn't know they existed. But she has hair that is long and so fine that it clots up the vacuum cleaner hose.
Oh, wow.
So she's a grooming disaster. I may just become your new best friend. She is now so knotted up I can't get the comb through her, because I went away for 10 days. But the dogs are they're delightful. They're a lot of fun. And
Now, what about the cats, the fostering of the cats?
the fostering.
How
of the
does that work?
Well, most shelters use foster homes. It's very important when you have a mama with kittens, because it's very hard to take care of them in a shelter. I think the key to fostering is you've got to be able to let go. Because you
Oh,
have
it
to
must
love
be
them.
difficult,
Yeah,
yeah.
you've got to love them. You've got to get involved in their lives.
Right.
Because a lot of the purpose for fostering is to keep animals socialized.
Uh-huh.
You have a perfectly lovely cat who's something happens to the family and they're sick or something, and then they come to the shelter, and you don't want that cat to get unsocialized. So you really have to get involved with them. You have to have a long talk with yourself about, I think most people probably adopt a couple just because
They can't give them up.
They can't give them up,
Yeah.
but you cannot adopt 22 cats. You've got to.
Now, do you like take some for a short period of time? I mean, I know you take kittens to be placed in a home, but as you said, if someone has a situation where they have to have the cat go somewhere for a while, you do it temporarily as well?
Yes.
Oh, that's neat.
One of my lovely cats now actually came from my daughter. They had taken him into foster care when his person was killed in an automobile accident. And so they fell in love with him. Ron is this great big orange and white character. And they live in Idaho, and they have a nature preserve across the road from them. And the road is like Route 30. It's that busy.
Wow, yeah.
So they finally got terrified of Ron's need to be outdoors. Because if you try to keep him in, he's going through screens, and
Yeah.
he's not a happy camper. So they brought him to us. So he's a foster who had one family, now has another family, and he is just perfectly happy. He spends most of his life curled up on the lounge chair on the deck.
Oh, that's
And
right.
he's as sweet as can be. My
That's,
one neighbor comes down. She considers him her respite care. She comes and sits and pets him, and he purrs.
And you know, they they have a way about them that is very soothing and relaxing. I know when my mom had Alzheimer's and she would come and Princey would sit on her lap for hours and Mommy would be sitting there with the paper upside down, not even knowing, you know, thinking she was reading, and she would just sit there and Princey would spend hours on her lap and it was just what she needed, you know, at that time. Debbie, tell us about Wings to Fly.
Wings to Fly. Wings to Fly is just a place of love. And these horses, if they don't fear you and they're not afraid, they have the most enormous heart centers. And just being a vessel to channel through, as you said, you know, God's love, and that's what heals. So they're the miracle workers. And I've had the privilege in the past year to witness several clients, just miraculous differences.
Now tell us what is Wings to Fly?
Okay, Wings to Fly is an equine therapeutic health care program, and it services anyone that has emotional, cognitive, or physical disabilities, children, adults. There's no
So
age
all
limit.
ages.
All ages. We have some children with autism. We have at-risk youth. We have sexually abused children. And then, of course, you know, physical disabilities as well.
Now you see the change in them. You see the horses bringing out the love and
the love. There was one little girl who was a cancer survivor, and she was so attached to her mother because of the experience that they had to go through, and she wouldn't do anything for herself. She was very timid. She wouldn't sleep by herself. Nothing. After 6 weeks, that's 1 hour a week, you could see the self-confidence in this little girl. And, you know, initially you'd have to stand back. Like, you just couldn't. She was so shy and withdrawn. I'd stand way back. And within 6 weeks, I mean, this mother said she started doing things by herself. She sleeps in her own room.
wow.
She couldn't wait to come, and she brushes. It's a
So they don't
sequential-
just ride; they also
no,
help to
it's
take
a
care of the
very
horses.
sequential, structured environment. So they start off by getting the horse, and of course whatever's appropriate to whatever
That
client.
particular situation.
That particular situation. So they're taught to groom.
Oh wow.
They saddle.
Oh.
Do they muck out the barn?
They don't do that.
You know,
Our volunteers do that. They help.
you know, I took riding lessons as a child, and if it rained, we had to muck the stalls and groom the horse. And my father said, "I'll be taking if my daughter's I'm going to pay for my daughter to muck out." But that's part of horsemanship.
Well, you know, it's part of the responsibility. I mean, you know, if
Exactly.
you just come and I want to get on the horse and that's it, what is
Yeah.
that really teaching them? Because so much of this program is that connection, being responsible, and also just by going through all those steps and the care of the horse, you're also establishing a rapport.
Yeah.
So you can see as she's just brushing, she is so connected to this little pony. And I just witnessed this child just blossom.
Yeah.
In her own, just blossom, her self-confidence. You know, there were a couple other cases. There was one child.
Wasn't there a little boy who, I was so touched by his story, where the teacher said he couldn't wait to come to school to share about his experience, and it just helped him to...
The social interaction
Yeah.
just really made him be able to verbalize.
There's something
and
special about him that
Yes.
he had. you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And there were a couple other cases. There was one young woman where she could not, and this is after a short session, a session where she could not even speak about her abuse until she had this experience at Wings to Fly, because the horses, you know, as victims, you're powerless.
Yeah.
And horses, look at them. I mean, they're giving you back your power.
Yeah.
They're channeling that true essence of who we all are.
Which is wonderful. It's just it's so amazing. I mean, our animals are such gifts to us. Do you have any little stories you wanted to
Oh, absolutely.
share?
Well, yeah, speaking of the whole connection of having to groom the horses and all that sort of thing first, I think that's one thing that as a groomer, you really learn. Anybody can cut hair, I always say, but to establish a relationship with the animal is
She's
a really
listening to you,
important
Phoebe.
thing.
She's listening to you.
You're listening to me, Princey. But like for instance, a lot of dogs come in that are very nervous, and the owners are very nervous because they know the dogs are nervous. And I always try to explain to people, when you walk in the door, like, let's say you're going to board the dog. Don't come in and say, oh, I hate to put you in doggy prison. It's like, it is not doggy prison. It is daycare. It is camp.
We
It is fun.
we tell our little granddaughter, she'll say, where is Princey? And we'll say, Princey's at camp.
Yeah, exactly.
Phoebe.
and the thing is, the dogs
She loves it.
pick up on that right away. I mean,
That's
just
what I was
like,
gonna
just like
say.
with children. I mean, I don't think people realize how connected the animals are to the way that you feel, whether you verbalize it or not.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes in and they're a little bit nervous and the dog is a little bit nervous, my biggest thing is to try to get the people to calm down, get the dog to calm down, because the dog doesn't know why the person is nervous.
Yeah.
And they think, uh-oh, is there something to be
Something's
afraid of?
wrong.
Why are you
Yeah.
nervous? And so I just, you're leaving them at camp, it's going to be fine kind of thing. And then when you have those dogs that are hard to work on, the greatest joy I have is to be able to get a dog like that that's nervous, that's worried, that thinks everything's going to go wrong. And you build up their confidence over time, establishing a relationship because you're working with that animal every week or every 2 weeks or however often it is. And that makes me have a relationship with the animal so the animal feels comfortable
Yeah.
coming back in. And what that does is that makes the human more comfortable.
I have to tell one funny story because Princey boards at Phoebe's whenever we go away, and we'll go pick her. Bob went to pick her up this one day, and she was so excited to see him, and she's wagging her tail, and she goes out to the car with him, and then she turns around
And came back in.
So she just wanted to say hello, but I'm staying here.
Yeah, staying here at camp. But it makes me feel better to make the people relax because that gives them, I think, a better relationship with their dog, and it makes them more able to understand the effect that their emotions have on their pet.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing with animals that are uncomfortable or nervous, or and people that are like that too. I think people that tend to be withdrawn or tend to be nervous or whatever, if you have a dog that's a real calming influence for them, it can,
It's a
even
gift.
if not necessarily a special needs person either.
No, no,
but
absolutely.
just your basic everyday person. If you're going through a depressing thing or whatever, what is
They cheer you
nice?
up.
Exactly.
They do.
And they can feel that, and they'll come up and cuddle with you or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's a wonderful, heartwarming feeling.
Oh, it is. Pat, do you have any stories that you want to?
I was just thinking of, I have a cat who is a character and a half. He was wild in the barn, and my husband said, there's a kitten out there. And so I saw the kitten, and he had an eye that was just totally trashed. So I said to Bob, if I ever catch him, I guess we're going to have another cat, because he couldn't be a wild cat with one eye. So anyhow, I did catch him one day. His name is Mitchell, and he's now 10 years old. He comes around Bob and me. He will not come near. If you showed up in the backyard, he disappears.
Gone, yeah.
But he sleeps with us every night.
Oh,
And talk about comforting. About 3 o'clock in the morning, he goes on his purr and need.
Oh yes, yeah.
So I've learned now, 10 years later, to just sort of get a little bit more awake around that time, so he doesn't, take me by surprise. But they're very comforting. A couple of the other ones, right now, 2 of the ones I have came out of a barn in Shaftesbury someplace, and it took about 3 years for them to come around and become real lap cats. But now you can't get rid of them. If you walk in the house, you have to sit down because they're going to follow you around and purr and run between your legs. But they're very calming. I think purring is very nice.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
it's
yes.
a nice.
It is.
Just
nice
that
sound.
Is it now?
gray noise.
How does it work with the foster care? I mean, does you get them so they're sociable, and then do people come and see them, or do you bring them? If somebody wants a cat, I mean, how do you
Oh, I've taken
foster
them,
them back?
I've taken them to Massachusetts to
Really?
I met people there. Usually, the adoption is handed through the
Second chance.
shelter.
Uh-huh.
But then it's sometimes, people have come to the house. I had one lovely woman who runs a bed and breakfast who, I met her someplace, and she gave me her card, and she said, I have cats so that when my clients come, they can have a cat. if they want with them. And she said, I find that I have to have 3 cats, and one of her cats was getting pretty old. And she said, if you really find an excellent cat, give me a call, because I will need one pretty soon. So a man called and said there was a cat who was trying to get in his house. And I said, what?
Really
She
wanted
said,
to be a house cat.
really?
Oh, I know another cat that gets into somebody's house. They are.
So I said to him, if you'd put a box out on your deck and some water, I'll come get the cat tomorrow morning. So I go back about what I'm doing, and I get a call from him. He said, Pat, there's a kitten. And I said, oh, God. And I said, well, that's okay. All the more reason to get her out of the street, So there were 4 kittens and the cat. Now, for me, this was wonderful, because if you hang around a shelter, you're not going to have kittens. You just know that this is not. So I had a mama cat and 4-week-old kittens.
Wow.
So I got to watch this whole thing, and mama cats are really good at what they do.
Oh, yeah.
And
They're amazing how they teach.
Yeah.
We had a cat that had 5 kittens, and to watch her teach her kittens was such an experience as a child.
Yeah,
it's just absolutely
amazing.
amazing. I'm looking at it, I'm seeing that we're running out of time. We're having so much fun.
Funny, I
all these
called the
questions.
woman, and she came and met Mama Cat.
Oh,
And now Mama Cat is playing with kids in her bread and breakfast. So
oh. And
It's
what happened
sure-
to the kittens?
I got homes for all of them.
Did you? Oh, that's such a wonderful story.
Yeah,
That's so great.
They're lovely little gray and white.
Oh, and there's nothing cuter, than a puppy or a kitten but they're also wonderful. I did want to share. Do you have any other little tidbits that you'd like to close up on?
Oh, gosh.
Just how much pets are just such a gift to all of us.
Oh, I mean, they've done studies, obviously, that
Yeah.
proven that people that have pets and have that responsibility or have that love when they're children end up being better people. I mean,
yeah.
serial murderers and all that kind of stuff usually started out not having animals or hating animals from the beginning. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a
it's
whole
just
dimension of your life. I feel so sorry for people that don't have that animal connection when they start out in life, because I think
Well, they're a gift.
They
give
absolutely
us
are a gift.
That unconditional love that they teach us.
Yeah, our daughter was an only child, and she would take her big black cat, Rudolph, and she'd go in her room, and Rudy'd be draped across her.
And Rudy always loves you.
And Rudy always loved
Yeah,
her, and
that's
she'd
right.
be saying what fools her parents were and how dreadful we were.
And he wouldn't argue.
And Rudy would just sit there purring.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here listening with the cats and the dog stories and how they teach us to play and everything. But, horses, obviously a different animal. But it came to my mind that in this one particular instance, we have a horse, and intuitively, this horse knew, trying to get someone on that had a brace on his leg. You had to bring his leg up over the horse's head. So they had to put it down. Now, the girl did not pull the head down. I literally stood there, and it was like I talked to the horse. I said, okay, the neck. And this horse knew, intuitively, the entire head went down to get this leg over. And that same horse played with this kid and I actually have a picture, one of those big balls. So I'm thinking, the horses don't play. And I'm like, oh, yes, they do.
They
because
do.
I have a picture where in one session, this kid rolled one of those big 36-inch exercise balls to the horse, and that horse started to interact and would take its head and roll it back to it, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So,
It's amazing.
it's so amazing.
So it's amazing, even with a horse in a short period of time.
Well, and horses don't normally, like when you're talking
That's
about the
what I'm
brace going
saying.
over, a horse does not normally just drop his neck for somebody. When
That's what I'm
if
saying.
you're mounting a horse and you put your head up over their head or their neck, they're likely to throw it right back because it scares them. It's unnatural for
It's
them.
a
And that's what I'm
very,
saying.
very
That was
natural
an
thing.
intuitive.
Amazing.
It was
Exactly.
because I felt that on an
Exactly.
energetic level.
Yeah.
The whole neck went down to
It's
get
so
that leg
amazing.
over.
It's so, this has
that's neat.
been
Yeah.
such an incredible show. This is so much fun. We could continue. We talked before. We should have done an hour show, but you know what? You'll all come back.
Oh,
'cause
we'd
we'll
love to.
all have more stories, and I would so love to come down to see Wings That Fly.
Oh, we'd love to have
It
you
would
come.
be really, really wonderful, and we'll do some things. And for all of you out there, this has been such a wonderful time for us to share the gifts of animals. Our little Princey. I want to quickly tell the story of Princey, where one night I had a dream. We had another dog named Princess for 14 and a half years who died, and the kids kept saying, Mom, a house isn't a home without a dog. So one night, pictures of dogs went in front of my face, And I said to my husband, I have to go to Second Chance. And it was snowing. He said, you're crazy. And I said, I have to go. And I went down there, and there was a Rottweiler and a Jack Russell jumping out of the cage. And I said, there has to be something else. And the girl said to me, well, a homeless person brought a dog in yesterday. And I said, I've got to see that dog. And I went in, and here's this little white dog that looked just like our princess, only smaller. And I looked at the girl and I said, what's her name? And she said, oh, her name is Princess. And I said, I've got to have that dog. Anyway, this has been so much fun. Thank you all for being here. And
Thanks,
you know
Sally.
what? We will do this again.
Absolutely.
And thank you out there for being here. Thank you for the I Matter, You Matter moment day. And you know what? Every day is I Matter, You Matter day. So until the next time, please keep making caring connections, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.